So thank you all so much for joining us this evening. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I'm Phoebe. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently the PFP intern for the summer. We're really excited to get to talk tonight about what it's like to be a resource parent, what's the really great value of having LGBTQ people involved in the foster care system. And we'll also get to hear some personal perspectives from parents on what their experience has been. If you've been to some of our other sessions, it'll function very similar to that. We're going to start with a presentation tonight with Dion and Lorenzo from DHS. And that aspect, as I said, will be recorded. And then we'll move into an unrecorded parent panel where you can feel comfortable asking whatever questions you might bring with you tonight. So if you have any questions that come up throughout, you can put them in the chat, or during the pauses for questions, you can turn on your audio and ask them. And with that, I will pass it off to Lorenzo and Dion.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. My name is Lorenzo Shedrick. I'm the Resource Development Administrator with Philadelphia DHS. So I do a lot of work in foster care and with our foster care providers. My direct supervisor, Dion Showell, was here also, and she'll introduce herself. Oh, this is so cool.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Dion Showell, Director of Intervention and Resource Development at the department. We are excited that you all are joining us to hear more about what fostering looks like for our LGBTQ kiddos. So please do, throughout the presentation, we'll stop for questions. So feel free to ask us questions. That's what we're here for. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Dion, is this good? Can you see this okay?
Yep, you're good now.
Perfect. All right, so again, I'm Lorenzo, and Dion is here with me as well. And we're going to talk a little bit this evening about becoming a resource parent, kind of provide a basic overview of some of the foundational stuff of foster care. So what is foster care? It's a temporary living arrangement for a child where their safety and well-being can be maintained until they're able to safely reunify with their parents or achieve another form of permanency. So who are the children that come into foster care? The children whose parents are experiencing a lack of or a diminished protective capacity that could not be safely improved or developed while the child is living in the home. A protective capacity is the way a caregiver thinks, acts, and feels that keeps your child safe. So when some of those capacities are diminished, you'll see a lot of these youth enter our foster care system. So the purpose of foster care is to ensure the child or youth can be safe, secure, and well cared for while a family is in crisis. Its intended result is that a child grows up in a safe, stable, and permanent home. The goal of foster care is permanency in a safe and stable home where the child's needs for nurturing, commitment, and safety can be met and their well-being can be maintained. The first priority is to work with the child's family so they can provide safety and permanence for their child. This happens while the child is in foster care. So again, the main purpose of foster care is for the child to be maintained somewhere safe until he or she can go back home. And the youth's family is typically working with the case team while the child is in care to reunify with their child. So how long do children remain in foster care? Based on the law, the intention is for children to be in foster care for 24 months or less. Foster care is meant to be temporary because of the impact that placement has on child development. The law gives timelines by which reunification should occur or another permanency option should be secured for the child. So again, I've said reunify or reunification several times now, but that just means that the child is returning to their family of origin. And when that's not possible, within the time frame provided by the law, alternate routes to permanency should be considered, such as adoption, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So what is the resource parent's role in reunification? So the resource parent has a big role in helping the child get back home to their family. Typically, we're really advocating for resource parents to be willing and able to work with the bio parent until the child can go back home. Some of the points we listed here, that when the goals of reunification, children maintain their connection with the bio parents or other reunification resource while the parents work on their goals. Children generally visit parents at least once a week. We ask that the resource parents support those visits. Foster parents should talk directly to parents at least monthly about how the child is doing. So some ongoing contact between yourselves and the bio parents. Children should never feel they have to choose between families. And over half of the cases that the department oversees close with reunification or the child going back home. At a glance, Philadelphia has roughly 3,330 children and youth in out-of-home placement as of May 22. Half of Philadelphia's children and youth are placed with kinship, which is a resource home with a known relative or friend of the child before they came into care. And then common reasons that families are reported to DHS include neglect, mental health and substance abuse disorders, housing, domestic violence issues, and physical or sexual abuse. I'm going to pause very quickly just in case we have any questions. I know we haven't went over too much, but if there's any questions, feel free to chime in now. Otherwise, I can keep going. We're good? Okay. All right, so what does DHS do? The Department of Human Services screens calls through the child abuse hotline. We investigate reports of abuse or neglect, refer families for in-home services to keep families together if possible. We obtain the court order in order to obtain custody of children when necessary. We also oversee 10 community umbrella agencies or CUAs and roughly 25 foster care provider agencies. So the role of the community umbrella agency or CUA, the CUA is the case management agency that is responsible for the case management of the child that could possibly be in your care, and they'll be responsible for developing single case plans, which entail the identified goals for families to reach reunification. They provide case management for children and youth in care. They'll coordinate all the family conferences, such as teaming conferences, connect families to resources and make referrals as needed. They'll monitor the progress on the case, and they'll continually monitor safety, well-being, and permanency via home visits, depending on the case. They may see the child up once a month or twice a month. So the role of provider agencies. A provider agency is your selected foster care agency. They're called foster care providers. So when you hear provider, we're talking about the foster care agency. But they're responsible for recruiting resource parents for foster care placements. They complete the certification of your home or the licensing of your home to become a resource parent. They provide pre-service and ongoing trainings. They'll ensure that the resource parents maintain compliance according to state regulations. They'll provide annual resource parent recertifications. They'll also be responsible for distributing per diem stipends or the funds that you'll use from the city to offset the cost of having an additional child in your home. Providers assign a resource parent support worker, which is aimed at supporting you while you're caring for children in our system. And then a resource parent keeps the same support worker no matter which CUA places children in the home. So sometimes if you're looking to parent multiple youth, you could parent multiple youth who are supported by different case management agencies, but you'll continuously be supported by the same resource parent support worker from your foster care agency. Any questions so far?
It looks like there's one question in the chat asking, are there any foster care agencies that DHS doesn't oversee, or are there just 25-ish in Philadelphia?
So there are, so not in Philadelphia. Most foster care providers within the city of Philadelphia are contracted with DHS to provide this foster care service. There's a ton of other agencies, adoption and foster care agencies, private agencies, but you'll find those in maybe Montgomery County, Bucks County, so on and so forth.
And I was just typing that in the chat, so. Yeah, right. So, cool.
So some basic requirements to become a resource parent. The resource parents must be at least 21 years old, be able to pass a criminal and child abuse background check. An arrest record or conviction does not prohibit you from becoming a resource parent. There's just some stipulations around certain types of criminal history. Resource parents should reside in a safe home. You can rent or own your home with a bedroom and adequate space for a child or an additional child. You have to provide proof of financial stability, meaning that you can pay your personal expenses without the use of the additional funds to offset the cost of the child, and then be physically and mentally able to care for children. And just FYI, that's assessed through like a physical form that you'll take to your primary care person. So about the certification process, you'll number one, attend an info session or meet with a resource parent recruiter. They'll help you complete the application, take you through all the necessary paperwork, such as the clearances for the criminal and child abuse and fingerprints. You'll attend the pre-service trainings. They're structured differently at each agency. You'll get, again, a physical and a TB test. You'll complete a home safety check. So the recruiter or certification specialist will come to your home to make sure, that it's structurally safe. There's running water, an operable refrigerator, operable utilities, and all that good stuff. The certification will also should be having certain conversations with you through the certification process. Those conversations should be about what kind of youth you're able to parent, what kind of youth you're interested in caring for, age preferences, sex preferences, all that good stuff, to figure out what would be a good fit for your home and your family. Any questions about that? I see a question in the chat about, oh, thanks, Dion.
I was just curious what a TB test was.
That's a tuberculosis test.
Oh, okay, cool, thank you. I was like, just wasn't ringing any bells. Awesome.
All right, so the documentation that you'll need, the recruiter will ask for documents such as proof of income, like your pay stubs, personal reference letters. Usually they'll give you like a template for the reference to fill out. The lease, the current rental lease or the deed to your home, homeowners or renters insurance, verification, state ID or driver's license if you drive, auto insurance and registration as well. Pet vaccination record, so cats and dogs should be vaccinated annually, and then the physical that we discussed, the physical and TB. All right, so how long does the process take? So many resource parents can complete the certification in less than 2 to 3 months. It really does depend on how quickly you complete the required trainings and get the clearances and get the documentation. After all that's done, the provider will submit a request to DHS to formally open your home, which really looks like assigning a unique identifier number to your home. And then once the home is certified and open, the provider will start to call you and have certain conversations about the youth who need placement. So usually the department will have a certain number of referrals for youth requiring placement in a resource home. They'll assign those referrals to provider agencies, and then provider agencies will call resource parents if they get the referral for a youth who matches your preference range. So how are placement decisions made? Again, they'll look at the referral to determine if it's a good fit for you. They'll take the factors like age, gender, how many children you currently have in your home, the dynamics of your home. They'll provide you with as much information as possible, such as the youth, where the youth is coming from, behavioral history, anything else that is relevant and of a concern. It's important to keep an open mind. We say that because, the department services a lot of youth with varying trauma histories. And, once any child that has been moved from their home of origin for any reason, that is, that's a traumatic moment. And some youth do experience struggles coping with that. So we ask that everybody keeps an open mind when speaking to the providers about what kind of youth you guys are willing to parent. So what about children with special needs? So within our system, we have 3 levels of resource homes or foster care. That's general foster care, Children fall under general foster care. Children of any age who needs can be supported without any specialized additional trainings or supports. So like, no additional intense training for the resource parent about specific behaviors, usually no therapeutic needs, and not much trauma background. Specialized behavioral health entails children of any age with significant behavioral issues that may require some extra training and support provided, again, such as additional therapeutic supports, in-home therapy and all that kind of good stuff. And then medical foster care. These include our youth who are medically fragile. And you'll require some extra training and support to care for them. And then some of our resource homes only provide short-term respite care. And respite care looks like giving another resource parent a break. Maybe they're going on vacation, a previously planned vacation. Maybe they just kind of need a self-care day or two for themselves, which I'm sure all parents need at some point. And you can provide respite care for those parents while they kind of get themselves together. Any questions so far? Any other questions so far? All right.
There is something in the chat in regarding, AJ, did you want to kind of speak on that a little bit more?
Okay, so I see a question from Molly. She says, how much advance notice do resource parents typically get before a child is placed with them? So Molly, honestly, you will see a range. Sometimes there is an opportunity to have a planned placement. So they'll call you and say, hey, we're trying to plan a placement, structure it such, so that the youth is moving from one place to another seamlessly, and there's no issues or no gap in placement. And then there's a thing called emergency placement where somebody may call you and say, well, you need a home, today, right now. So you'll see either one of those kind of things go on. So there's planned and emergency placements. AJ asked, is there any limits if you have multiple homes in different states? Or what happens if you move during fostering a child, for example, to Delaware? Dion, you want to attack that?
Sure. So multiple homes in different states. I'm not sure how that works. I know you wouldn't be able to carry the kid from state to state if you're residing there. So that's something that with even with kiddos who have family members who are across states, they do something called an ICPC. So if you have if you're fostering a youth that is in state and you're moving to state, most likely we will not allow a kid to go from one state to another unless there is a special circumstance. And I'm not certain how that would look. Like that would be something that our leadership would have to have a conversation about. But typically, if our kiddos are in Philadelphia, they remain in Philadelphia unless there's some permanency that's being sought, then that might look different. Because ideally we want to keep them local to ensure that they're maintaining a connection with their families and their natural supports in their community. So you wouldn't necessarily move from state to state with the kiddo, but if there's some permanency that's being discussed, again, that would be for a consideration moving from another state, but that would be special circumstances. The court would be involved and they would have input regarding what that would look like.
Right, and moving to Delaware as well, like Dion stated, there could be an issue with moving to a different state. The license is held by, again, Philadelphia DHS, who is overseen by PADHS. So we wouldn't be able to support a license or sustain a license in another state. So typically when people call in from other states, I refer them to the Child Welfare Agency in their, in their state. Oh, yeah, I didn't even see you answer the other questions about the planned emergency placement. Thank you. So what kind of resource parents are needed? There's always a need for resource homes to care for children with different needs. Homes are in the shortest, and we mean the shortest supply for a youth who identifies LGBTQ+, sibling groups, so 2 to 3 youth, older youth, our youth 13 and older. Everybody is very interested in fostering our younger children who are lovely but homes are in such short supply for older youth right now. SBH and medical level youth. So again, youth who have a higher degree of need than our general level youth. And then parenting youth, which is youth, children, teenagers who have their own children. So we call those mother baby youth. Sometimes we have referrals for, a mother and a child who need placement together. A teen mother and a child that need placement together. All right, so I've mentioned permanency before, we'll just jump into this very quickly. What is permanency? It is the establishment of an identified adult or family who has made a commitment to care for and support a child up to and beyond the age of majority. Children need a permanent home to thrive. Permanency goals include reunification, which is the child going back home, reaching permanency through reunification, or reaching permanency through adoption. And then next to adoption, there's permanent legal custody, or PLC. Again, the first priority is reunification. DHS uses concurrent planning to achieve permanency quickly if reunification is ruled out. So this means children should be placed with resource parents who are willing to adopt or go through the PLC process. So a little bit about adoption.
Oh, you're about to mention what PLC is. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit about adoption and PLC. Adoption, if a child cannot be returned home safely and in a timely manner, the next most permanent plan is for the child to be adopted by a qualified caregiver. The adoption process entails the termination of parental rights and the creation of parental rights for the new caregiver, and the creation of a new legal family. So again, termination of parental rights, which means that the biological parent or parents will have their rights terminated by the judge, and then they'll create new rights for the new for the adoption parents. If a child has been in care for 15 of the last 22 months, DHS may ask the court to terminate parental rights and find a quality family to provide a permanent home for the child through adoption or PLC. So permanent legal custody, or PLC, makes another person, often a family member, the permanent legal guardian, and is intended to be a permanent arrangement, but unlike adoption, does not involve termination of parental rights. So PLC legally makes you the caregiver of the youth, and you can make legal decisions on behalf of the child, but their biological family's rights stay intact. So that's the big difference between adoption and PLC. Adoption, parental rights are terminated. PLC, the parental rights remain intact. However, you are legally able to, you are legally still that child's parent. Any questions about adoption or PLC?
With regard to PLC, what rights are there that isn't covered by legal guardianship? Like what do the parents retain?
That is a great question. So typically, you'll see youth go through PLC when they don't want to be adopted. Some youth at over a certain age are asked if they want to be adopted, and if that's something that they want to go through with. If that's not something they want to do, the next permanent route is PLC. Because the child, again, may want to maintain their relationship with their biological family. Concurrent planning. So I mentioned that a little second ago, but it's the process of working toward one legal permanency option while establishing and implementing an alternative permanency goal. So both goals are worked on concurrently to move youth through our system more quickly. So when the youth come into care, again, the first goal is always reunification, for them to go back home. After a certain time frame, they'll start working on another goal of adoption or PLC, just in case reunification does not occur, because they don't want to wait too long to rule out reunification and then look at adoption, and the child stays in the system for far longer than he or she needs to be. So they'll work on several goals at one time to keep them in the system, for the shortest amount of time. So despite the best efforts of bio parents and caseworkers, there are times when reunification cannot be safely achieved within the timeline or does not meet the needs of the child. Again, if we wait until the decision is made to make alternate permanency plans for a child, we also increase the amount of time they remain in foster care. All right, so how do I adopt or obtain PLC? The federal law, ASFA, which is the Adoption and Safe Families Act, allows most parents at least 15 months, but no more than 22 to achieve reunification before the judge changes the goal. We're seeing that amount of time extend because, of course, the legal system allows parents more time when they're diligently working towards their reunification goals. When a reunification is ruled out, they'll change the child's goal from reunification to adoption or to PLC. So when that formally changes, which happens in court, your case manager will work with you to complete what's called a family profile. You'll go through an entirely separate adoption process. It looks a little different than the foster care process. And then you ultimately set a date to finalize your adoption or PLC. And just FYI, the family profile does a lot of, it's kind of like a assessment of you and your entire household. So if it's just you, it'll be just you. But if you have a significant other, a spouse, your own children, all those people will be explored in the family profile. Pennsylvania children are already available for adoption or listed online. The adoption attorney is provided by DHS at no cost to the resource parent. The resource parent continues to receive this stipend after finalization. So you can still receive financial support from the state after your adoption finalizes. And then again, there are post-adoption services available to provide continued support. So when you do adoption, while you're doing foster care, the children will remain, the custody will remain with Philadelphia DHS. You're just the interim parent. Once adoption occurs, the children are completely out of the system. The courts are completely out of the picture. The case manager, the social workers, everybody's out of the picture. So if the child still requires support, you can still be connected to those therapeutic supports that he or she was receiving while in the system after you finalize your adoption. I hope that wasn't too much, I'm sorry. Okay. So LGBTQ plus youth in foster care. Nationwide, youth who identify as LGBTQ plus are overrepresented in foster care. The rejection or mistreatment by family related to sexual orientation can be a factor leading to youth coming into care. So we're seeing a lot of youth who parents just don't want to deal with those specific issues, kind of shun their youth. The youth are in the street, and a lot of them enter our system through that pathway. LGBTQ plus adults are uniquely able to relate to our youth, serve as role models, and affirm their developing identities. And then youth are encouraged to connect with programs, our community partners such as the Addict Center and Galay. So how do you foster LGBTQ plus youth? While you're going through the certification process, while you're working with your recruiter or certification specialist, you want to let them know that this is something that you're interested in. And I'm sure as those youth come through our system and require placement, you'll be one of the first people that they call. All right, so I'm going to open it up for more questions. If you do have any other questions, please do jot down this email address. We'll just jot it down, and if you do have questions, feel free to email us anytime. It comes directly to Deanna and I, and we're happy to reach out and providing any more information. But for now, let us know if you have any questions. Thank you all. Thanks, Phoebe.
I had a question about just like mostly out of curiosity of like how much like care we can provide. If there was, for instance, like a trans youth that came into our care, I was curious how like medical transition is handled, if like the bio parents are still involved, if the state even allows for any sort of like medical transition. Just kind of if you could give a general like overview of that.
Well, yeah, so again, these youth have such specific issues, and sometimes there has been like instances where the biological parent, well, the resource parent supported the youth's decisions and the biological parent did not. So again, these issues are so delicate that they often have to go into court so that the judge can grant permission for the youth to pursue certain decisions that he or she wants to make. And in addition, I think over 14, they can make certain decisions for themselves, like medical decisions, but more specific, more higher level things. If there's no participation or willingness from the bio parent, the youth case manager can have it explored in court when there's specific issues such as trans and gender identity stuff.
In addition to that, they are also appointed child advocates who are in the law. They have lawyers as well that support them and can kind of guide the process. So the court process is always involved when it comes to those type of decisions, especially if the kiddo is over 14 and there isn't any agreement when it comes to the decisions.
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I know you mentioned in your presentation that there's some pre-service trainings that look different depending on which agency you're working with. But I was wondering if you could elaborate on some of those things emphasized in the trainings that may be important for prospective parents to know.
Sure. So, like I said, it is structured differently within each agency. Some agencies will have them like on Saturdays. You'll complete maybe 4 or 5 Saturdays in a row. Some will have them during during weeknights, on different nights during the week. So they're delivered differently at every agency. I think so during that process, we typically go through your basic stuff like child abuse, safe bathing, safe sleeping for children, of course, overview of trauma and what that entails, and then some more specific stuff is like reasonable and prudent parenting, which is a state mandate that says that which allows for normalcy for youth in foster care, meaning historically the resource parent couldn't make a lot of decisions on behalf of the youth, and then the newer law allows resource parents to allow activities for youth that are normal for the developmental age and range, and that that benefit their well-being. So you can allow permission for all types of programs, trips, going out of state, so they can come along with you all if you're doing anything fun. So that's important to know, so you'll know what kind of decisions you can make. I think the training emphasizes that resource parents can only not make, I think, non-routine medical decisions and then decisions about psychological treatments. So that's important to know. The other trainings are just about child development, child safety, of course, LGBTQ trainings on those kind of things. Anyone else, Dion? I feel like I'm drawing a blank. I see that Shauna is here. One of our partners from Northern Children's Services. I don't mean to call you all Shauna, but if you're willing to kind of jump in, I know this is, your lane, but I'm glad you were able to join. If you can share anything about the training topics.
Absolutely. Hello and greetings to everyone this evening. I don't know why my camera's not working. I have it turned on, but it's not working. Great to see everyone here. But just as you said, Lorenzo, the trauma piece, the LGBTQ, the child development, working with teens, self-care for our resource parents, a big part as well for the trainings. That's all I can think of right now.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Shauna, so much.
Absolutely.
I had a quick question as far as just the different agencies in the city. Is there is it region based, or is it more one is more catered, has more experience with LGBT youth, or another? I was just curious how people go about selecting an agency.
So we've always suggested that prospective resource parents choose an agency that was usually close to them, in your vicinity, in your area. But since the pandemic, everything has been so virtual. We're really foreseeing things staying virtual for a while longer. So I don't think it really matters about the location. But I always tell resource parents to kind of shop around for an agency. You don't have to stick with the first one that you call and they answer your question. You can shop around and move forward with somebody with a recruiter that you feel that you can build a rapport with, somebody you're comfortable talking to, who's answering all of your questions, and feel supportive. Because you can call 2 or 3 agencies, or you can call all 25, but I want you to go with whoever you feel the most comfortable moving forward with. But yeah, they're all overseen by DHS. You can always call DHS if you have experienced any issues while going through the certification process. I'm sure you won't, but you can just choose what you're comfortable with. And Paige, I can send a list to you of all of all 20 something of our agencies so that you can disseminate it to everybody who attended today. I mean, Phoebe, I'm sorry, did I say Paige? I'm sorry, Phoebe.
Sounds great. I'll be sure to include that in the follow-up email after this session.
And thank you.
You're welcome.
And then it also looks like we have another question in the chat asking, how long does ICPC usually take for a child moving into Philadelphia from another state?
Honestly, we do not have that answer because the other state typically process the paperwork. So we're not certain like how long that process would take from another state, getting that information to Philadelphia, et cetera. What I can say is that is a long process. And at this point, it could take up to 6 months just based on just their form of how they're sharing information. I think it's still postal. So a lot of things are delayed, it's postal and whatever that looks like. But we're not certain what that time frame looks like. You would get more information based on the kid and like their jurisdiction and people processing the paperwork, et cetera.
Thanks, Shawna, for providing that link.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
Any other questions about the process? Any foster care myths you've heard you want to discuss? Anything?
Anybody want to give us emojis if you're really interested and you want us to stalk you and reach out to you?
I don't know if it's a myth. I have been trying to follow more foster parents, specifically LGBT foster parents, to get an idea of what it's gonna be like. And this person definitely could have been from another state, but they said that there is a rating within some systems on how LGBT a child is. And I just thought it was funny that you could get a kid on a rating scale. I just was curious if that happened in Philadelphia.
What?
Yeah. This was a Midwest mom, and she was explaining the system, and I was like, that sounds really fake.
Definitely a myth.
I was like, hey, that doesn't sound right. Okay. Thank you for dispelling that.
I do wonder if that aligns, though, not specifically to LGBTQ youth, but and I don't know if it's the same in Pennsylvania, but in New Jersey, the kids that are placed with me do have a number, but it kind of determines more their medical needs. So if they have a high, if they need a medical home, then they're given a category 5. And so there's different categories that way, but I don't know if it's the same in PA.
Yeah, it's very similar. So with medical foster care, we have medical level 1, level 2, and level 3. But beyond that, it's just general and SBH foster care.
Cool.
So, hi everyone. My name is Paige Davis. My wife and I have been fostering teens for about a million years now. I think maybe what they're talking about is teens, so I want to just say that I think that's a rumor also, because in Philadelphia, from our experience, they're not even supposed to ask the kid if they're LGBTQ. They're supposed to allow the kid to tell them what their pronouns are and if they identify in the LGBTQ community. So I don't think we've never experienced, it might be an internal thing, but we've never been like, this kid is a 1 or a 10 on the scale or the scale.
Thanks, Paige.
Thank you.
And then there's one question in the chat asking if you can speak more to what is considered an appropriate amount of space, as well as how financial stability is defined.
Okay.
So
sure. Sorry, Paige.
So for us, financial stability, they just wanted to see that without the stipend, that you can support your household. They want to make sure that like you're not depending on the stipend that they give you to like pay your rent or pay your electricity or any of your bills. And as far as the appropriate room, I think they classify a room anything with a door, a window, and a closet. So someone who's official can like answer it more, but it should be a nice room. If you're welcoming someone to your home, you should really like welcome them to your home. It should be a nice, comfortable space for them.
Thanks again, Paige. And yeah, just like she said, either a available room. Sometimes families provide foster care and they have their own children. If the child is willing to kind of share a room, we've seen that as well. That's perfectly fine. We're just not looking for a room with 2 sets of bunk beds and also a twin bed on the side.
I would just add that children who are 5 and under can share a bedroom if they are opposite sex. Well, actually 4 and under, because once one of the youth turns 5, they have to be in separate bedrooms. Then other than that, we want them in the same age range and can share bedrooms. So a 15-year-old and with maybe a 13-year-old, but not in with a 5-year-old.
All right, thanks, Jonah. And also a regulation is that youth shouldn't be sharing beds. So 2 youth, whether siblings or not, they're not unable to sleep in the same bed or in a bed with the parent.
And there's also.
Can I say? Sorry. Also, if you do end up fostering a younger child, sometimes DHS may have like a crib or a pack and play that comes from another foster family, or even sometimes they have things for you. So you can always ask, because sometimes you get placements rather quickly, and sometimes they'll have some accommodations for you.
Thanks, Paige. Always ask the case manager, what can you give me? what resources are available? Absolutely. We encourage that.
And there is a question about housing assistance with housing costs for foster parents. So no, but in certain cases like kinship cases, where the youth is being placed with family, sometimes I've heard of the department helping out in that area to help the kinship family get increase their housing space, but not initial resource parents. They won't provide any costs for that.
And can I also jump back? Someone asked about agencies that are like LGBTQ friendly. My wife and I, we've been with NET since the beginning. We were with a smaller agency that no one probably knows of called CSI originally, and they closed. And we went with NET because NET is like in our area. So we went with them, but we've also worked with a Second Chance and whatever's on Henry Avenue. It was one thing and now it's something else. And we haven't had any problems with any of those agencies. And I also heard Delta is good also. I have 2 friends who are married who just got their home certified through Delta.
I feel like this is where I should insert my plug. Northern Children's Services, we are also LGBTQ friendly. I have certified many families and we are so happy to do so. We're on Ridge Avenue, 5301 Ridge.
Yes, and I work with Northern families. They have a wonderful mother-baby program. I work with them in my daytime job every day. They're awesome up there, and they're really communicative. So I got y'all back too.
Thank you.
And if you do have a child that's placed in your home that needs other service, Northern is like a full service. They have everything there. So, yes.
And Shauna, you all are up in Roxborough, right?
Yes, we're in the Roxborough section of the city. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And in case someone didn't get all of those agency names, I've written them down and I'll send them out in the follow-up email.
And we'll also provide you the document with all the agencies and their contact information as well.
And then we do have a question coming in about if you live with another adult in the house who is not a spouse, like a sibling, would that person have to go through the process as well? And
no, so you don't have to go through the process. They just would have to have clearances and accept like individuals in the home. You would just have to make sure their clearances come back clear and that they understand what the process is, but they wouldn't have to necessarily be considered foster resource parents rather. Yeah.
Right. And just as a follow-up, any adult in the home will have to have clearances with the foster care provider. And it's Shauna, it is all adults, right? And then any youth over, is it 16? We're doing
18 plus. Anyone 18 plus, your clearances and your physical.
Are we still doing 160s for youth over 14?
We don't.
Okay.
Until they reach 18.
Okay. Thanks, Shauna.
Also like to add, even if you want to be the resource parent and your spouse just wants to be considered an adult in the home, they'll get their clearances and their physical. They won't have to go through the trainings that you will. You'll be the official resource parent and they'll just be an adult in the home.
When you are a foster parent, if you, for example, need a babysitter for the evening or an afternoon or something, what is okay? Like, could I ask my mom to babysit who lives in the suburbs? Like, is there a specific list I can go off of?
Yep. So
Highly recommend. Oh, go ahead, Lorenzo.
No,
I think we love this question. But
no, the reasonable and prudent parenting standard, I was talking a little bit about it earlier, allows you to make a whole lot of decisions. So the stipulation, not the stipulation or caveat, but the rule for that is for resource parents to use their best judgment. So you can make a lot of decisions or whether, babysitters, childcare, activities, while you're using your most reasonable and prudent judgment. So there you go.
You can also have an official alternate caregiver on the books where we run their clearances, not the physical because they don't live in your household, but we'll run their clearances. They'll be the official person when you need that time that you can call on. Or again, we can provide that respite. It can't be more than 2 weeks. It can happen in an emergency situation because we can understand that, but it can also be planned.
so it looks like we are approaching the hour mark. So would now be an okay time for everyone if I turn off the recording and we can hear a bit more from some of our parents on their experience?
Yes, that's fine.
Oh, great.